Hey everybody, it's me, Mary Z, back on the VoiceHacks channel. If you are new to my channel and you don't know me, I am a full-time vocal coach and vocalist, and I've been coaching people on modern singing styles and even screaming styles, teaching people how to make extreme sounds with their voice for mostly like modern genres, rock, metal, sometimes pop and country when we have belters, and that's exactly what we're going to get into today. It's my full-time job to be a vocal coach, and one of the main songs that people have trouble with is the national anthem. The national anthem of the United States, to be specific, because I know that I have a really wonderful and lovely international audience here with me. There was this viral performance that everybody was talking about recently, this lady named, let's see, Ingrid Andress. It's so bad. I'm so caught up in the rock and heavy metal world. I don't know country singers. Apparently, she's been nominated for a few Grammys, etc. But there was a pretty bad viral performance that went around. And even though it's not per se in my typical wheelhouse of rock and heavy metal, we should take a look at this because I've coached several people on how to give a good national anthem performance. And we're going to talk about why is the American national anthem such a tricky song. And of course, we are going to look at a few things, some good things and some bad things about the national anthem. Let's go take a look. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at Ingrid's performance. I know at first I debated like even reacting to it because once she posted that the bad performance was due to her being drunk, which is kind of negates any of the learning things that are the point of this channel and any of the things that I try to teach you guys when I'm doing this stuff about, you know, best practices, maybe what went wrong technically, you know, because if it's someone's wasted, none of that matters. Some things will be right, some things will be wrong, you know. Some people can perform really, really nicely while they're wasted. Obviously, not all people can. So I debated even checking it out, but we're going to check it out because there are a couple technical things in here. And as always, I want you guys to, you know, my rule of always, you know, leaving some room for kindness if it's there, and for, you know, you never really know what's going on in this person's life. This is going to follow her forever. You know, it harkens back to Fergie. We remember when she did sort of a bad rendition of the national anthem, you know, and some of these things stick with people. It's a very public thing, and I honestly feel really bad for her having been the subject of this, but at the same time, you know, nobody makes you drink before a really important performance, you know, but some vocal things with the national anthem that are secrets to making sure that sober or not, you can go out there and pretty much do a very confident, very good job anytime, no matter what your vocal range is. We're going to talk about that, but let's check about what went wrong here.
Who's broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, or the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night.
This is wild.
That our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
I see so much stuff there in the when we got close.
O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right, so there's a lot going on here, people. So let's talk about what exactly went on. So a few things about the national anthem. Actually, when I first heard about this, I thought this was going to be the typical national anthem problem where the person cracks on the high note because they started in too high of a key. And this actually happened to poor Jennifer Hudson, who I think is one of the best singers of our time, possibly of all time, you know, as far as belting and pop singing and R&B singing goes. And I'm not bringing that up to troll an absolutely phenomenally amazing singer. But the point is that, you know, even if you're totally sober and technically proficient, you could screw up the national anthem for some inherent reasons that are about the national anthem. I guess like this bad of a performance that we're seeing here could not necessarily happen to anybody, but there's some things it didn't do that. It didn't biff the high note the way I thought, but definitely, you know, this is an unaccompanied performance, and singers a lot of times need accompaniment, like a reference note, an instrument behind them to tell them where they are on the piano. Are they high? Are they low? That's the key. We call that the relative key. She did deviate from the key, kind of like the key of the song where she started to the key of the song where she ended it a little bit, but it wasn't as much as I thought. Couple of the not to do with the being drunk flaws here. There's this kind of like vocal inflection style that, I don't know, younger or modern singers try to do. They try to put this sort of timbre, tone, or inflection onto their voice, and it does inhibit their ability. It inhibits your, if you're doing this, ability to, you know, hit pitches nicely and kind of hear where they're going and sustain them. You want to sustain your notes without like dropping them off into nowhere. So we hear a lot of this attempted like inflection expression thing, free, you know, this type of things. You know, oh, say, can you see? This kind of see, or an upward, like sort of a cracking type of thing, a whiny inflection. I'm not good at it because I don't think I have the voice for it. I have definitely a mature sounding voice, having a low voice, also just being older myself. It's not the same. But anytime people try to add these sort of put upon inflections and that deviate from the natural resonance, because you can hear she has good power and tone in there. If she would kind of use it a little differently, it doesn't work. It sends the pitch all over the place. But then obviously she lost like her reference if she was getting lost in her head from being a little bit buzzed or whatever. The mouth kind of looked lazy, you know. But that again is sort of like a drunk thing, right? We slur the words, so we lose a lot of resonance when we don't articulate our words. And then the other big faux pas that I just tell everybody not to do, you know, you remember Jack Black actually had a viral national anthem and everybody loved it, and it was a positive viral. And the reason he had that was because he actually performed it fairly straightforward, and he stayed in key the whole time. He used pretty traditional, nice, resonant vocal technique, and then he also did not embellish and add notes that weren't there. So at the end here, she adds a whole bunch of notes that aren't in the original song, you know, which a lot of people do. A lot of R&B singers are really guilty of this, because like people like to use the national anthem because they usually get to perform it in front of a huge stadium of people like this, 30,000, 40,000 people. And then it's often on television. It's a solo performance where it's just you. You get to show off, not even accompanied most of the time. So a lot of people try to add stuff in there. But if you haven't practiced those ad libs, they're not going to go very good. And you need to make sure you practice them in great detail or don't do them at all. And that's why I think a lot of people liked Jack Black's version, because he didn't do any ad libbing. I know that sounds weird, but this is our national anthem. Even to us as artists, it's not really meant to be a solo performance. You're meant to be doing, you know, a service when you do the national anthem, you know, to everybody on both sides of the political spectrum, everybody that lives here, all the players, all our service people, all our veterans, all that. And so you have to show it some respect. And so like, if you are going to dress it up a little bit, you better be someone very, very good. And even if you're very, very good, you better have practiced those. If you're not 100% sure, don't do them. And that's where we got to here. I think this was also just like lack of practice and preparation. You know, I mean, and it's weird because like I hear some weird pitchy stuff like in the audio. I don't know if there's like a chorus effect on the voice or something, like some audio processing, but it does sound weird a little bit. But so wait, let me go back. Okay, yeah, this is where it goes a little haywire. That's not exactly the worst idea. Free, free, something like that. That could have been good, I suppose. And you can see it was pretty difficult for me to kind of nail out there in just 2 seconds, especially when the recording is. The original example is a little bit out of tune. Out of tune is different than being completely out of key. Like, I could actually tell clearly what she was trying to do there. But if we're wasted, it's probably going to go somewhere south. You know, it might have been something she had in her head, but it doesn't sound like it was very well practiced. But either way, like, we should not be intoxicated for some of these things, of course, you know. Why did I think that this was going to go awry in a different way? I thought this was going to go the high note thing. If we actually go back, and let's talk about, so when I'm teaching people and they have a national anthem performance coming up, I always tell them, don't, try to do it as low of a key as is humanly possible, And so when you're unaccompanied, you can just start singing wherever. You don't necessarily have to know the note name. You can just pull it out of your ass, as we say. And so when you do that, that's fine. But most people will start it in too high. Why is this important? I went back today and I looked at an old score, one of the first printings of the original, courtesy of Wikipedia, of the original Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem here. And this original score, one of these early versions, granted, this is an adaptation and an arrangement, it says, so it's not necessarily original, but just it shows us how far the key goes. And this one looks like it's in C major, with some accidentals that we have. And then it's going into it goes from middle C all the way up to G5. So that's an octave and a half. So from here to there. And that's where the original is, the land of the free ends up here. Land of the free. For me as a contralto, it's like, that's not beltable. So you can do a few things. So that octave and a half, that means that's like our 8-note regular scale. For those of you who aren't musicians, it's this many notes plus like 4 more. Like that. I've been teaching people, I'm 42, and a lot of people don't realize that, because I know I'm lucky and I look a little bit younger than I am, which is really great, but I started kind of revealing how old I actually am in videos, because it doesn't make sense when you hear about my experience or how long I've been teaching people or the amount of evidence I have, as a teacher and as a performer, and the amount of my experience and blah, 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 blah. It all comes into play. And in the 20 years that I've been working with students, I will tell you that most human beings, in my experience, regardless of where their vocal range starts on the piano, get about 2 to 2.5 octaves of belting at their disposal. And if we're a soprano, sometimes it may only be like an octave and a half, which is the exact octave and a half belt register of this song in this original C major key, C4 to G5. But sopranos, though, I would stretch it up to 2 octaves and say you're probably singing a little bit lower than middle C. But anyway, the point is that this can encompass an entire person's vocal belt register. And if you don't start it in the right place on the piano for you, each of us's octaves of belt register starts in a different spot on the piano. And that's what makes us have a high voice, a medium voice, or a low voice. And if I don't put this in a key that fits for me, so this would be a great key for a soprano. An octave down, it might be a great key for a baritone, but it's not going to be a good key for me as a contralto, because I could sing that note, those land of the free, but only in like my operatic voice, and this is not, most Americans will choose to belt. We do have a really good example of Renee Fleming, a famous opera singer from America here, doing the national anthem operatically, and it goes great. And if you do it operatically, you still need to put it in a key for you, but it's far more flexible because we don't have a belt register break. We're singing with the same kind of muscles and the same style for most of the register. from low to high. So but we don't usually see people. Most people want to belt the national anthem. And so I would tell you that if you can't give yourself a pitch reference right before you go out, be careful where you start. Start as low as you possibly can. And that means below your speaking voice. And why is that? Because your speaking voice is where you tend to start, but that's actually like the middle of your register. So then by the time you get to the land of the free part, it's going to be really, really, really crazy, and it's going to go up, So I would start it like, oh, say, can you see? I'll start really low. Maybe not quite that low. Oh, say. Yeah, so that puts it down to like B flat 2, which is where we would get. So that means that when we got to the higher part, it would be for the land of the free. So actually, that's probably a little low for me to start because free and the home of the brave. Okay, so that one starting on B flat 2. Land of the free. When I get up to, that's B flat 3 there now. When I get up to the higher key, it's really, really comfortable. So you could do that and start as low as possible, and then it's guaranteed to be comfortable. That to me was a little low, though. I would like it maybe just a little showier within my own range on the top. So what if I started where the "Oh Say Can You See" lands more like on E3? Oh, say can you see? Then when we get to the land of the free, we get land of the free. And yeah, that kind of works. Land of the free. That works. So that's a little showier. That's pushing it up to B flat or B. Sorry, when we get there in that key. So that gives you an idea. It gets really crazy. So my suggestion for you guys is to download a piano app from your phone. And then what you do is before you go out onto that field, like right before, you'll have somebody with you, give your phone to somebody right before you walk out. You have the wireless mic in your hand and you find out way ahead of time what note is a good starting note for you, where you land. You may have to sing through the whole song a couple of times because, again, this song seems really comfortable until you get to the end of it, okay? And it's sort of like Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. I always call it like the living on a prayer mistake, because you're not anticipating the ending. You're starting too high and then it's going to keep going higher. And then when you get to the end, you're just screwed if you didn't start in a comfortable place. So realize that the audience doesn't have what we call perfect pitch, which is where they have the ability to literally hear the note name as it's being played. It's where you go like, what's this note? And somebody can tell you the note name without a reference. And that's a cognitive skill that you may have seen people like Charlie Puth have it and stuff. And, that's cool. That's a cognitive skill, but most people, especially non-musicians, audience members, people do not have that. So nobody can tell what's happening in your singing except for what's relative to you. So what happened to Jennifer Hudson, if we go to back to that example, she started too high, even for her. Being a super professional singer, being a soprano singer, there's still a physical limit. It's not like an infinite voice type. You could still have the highest type of human voice, and it doesn't go infinitely. So if she just would have started lower, it would have been no problem when she got up to the highs. And she actually navigated it a lot better than a lot of people would. One other trick you can do is you don't have to keep going up. So when you get to the second half of the song, you can come back down the octave and start back at your original point. So if you do start in too high of a key, what do you do? So if I started in this key where it starts on middle C, which would be way too high for me. Oh, say, can you see? It's already like too high for me. But then when you get to the Rocket's Red Glare, the sort of bridge part here, don't keep going up. Normally we'd be going up to and the Rocket's Red Glare, in this key, that's what it would be. So what I would do, let's do it an octave down so that I can show you. So if the original was oh, Sorry. Oh, say, can you see? So I'm doing this key, but an octave down for a baritone. Instead of going, and the rockets red glare, and just keep going up the scale, you could just go, and the rockets red glare. And you can keep going from there. The bombs bursting in air. And then when you get to the oh, say, does that star-spangled you're in the low octave for the land of the free, you know? So it still would follow the melodic pattern. So that's my suggestion is if you can't change the key, which you usually can, you're singing it a cappella, unaccompanied. You can pick whatever key. But if you can't, then go down the octave back to the starting point on the rocket's red glare. Don't keep going up. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. So make sure that you find out what your starting note is. You save it. You get your little piano app out and you give yourself a little ding, 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 ding on that keyboard. Hum that in your head till you get out onto that stage. Hand somebody your phone right before you walk off after you hear that note. You'll probably start in the key that you've been practicing it in, the key that you intended to sing in, you know, because we also don't have perfect pitch, most of us, and you're not just going to magically remember it. And at home, you need to be practicing the same way. You need to be finding your ideal starting note for the key that you want to do it in for your voice, and you need to practice it the same exact way, giving yourself the starting note the same every time, exactly the way you're going to do it on stage. So, and then maybe even record yourself doing it. Watch some playback before you do it. So I hope that helps. I hope that's been eye-opening for you guys on like why some of these things go right and why some of them go wrong, and how most of the time preparation will beat even vocal technique and experience as far as giving a good performance or not. I could be less experienced, but if I give a really solid, convincing performance in a comfortable key, people are going to praise it a lot more than the person who biffs it in the high key. So I'm Mary Z, vocal coach. And if you want to know more about me and lessons with me, I teach students all over the world on Zoom every week. VoiceHacks.net is my website. Link to everything you need is in the description below. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you soon.